everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast and Merry Christmas to all of you listening. We're so excited today. We are here for a bonus episode. We are talking some holiday horror. So if you're not into the horror thing, then you can skip this episode. We had like 10 episodes this week, tons of other stuff to listen to. But we're going to have a lot of fun talking about holiday horror. I am film critic Rachel Wagner, and today with me I have two of my favorite YouTubers / podcasters. I have with me Lee McCoy's here from Drumdums.
What's up, everybody?
Yep.
Nice to be here.
And Sean Chandler's here.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm excited about this one. This should be fun.
Yes, it's going to be super fun. And Lee, this is your first time on Hallmarkies podcast. We've done some things with Rachel's reviews, but this is your first time here. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do over on your channel.
Sure. Well, my name is Lee McCoy. I run a channel called Drumdums. I've been doing this for about 8 years now. It still feels fresh and new and fun. Maybe that's because movies keep feeling fresh and new and fun. But yeah, I love this space. I love the people, and I really enjoy discussing movies and film.
Yeah,
we've done a couple. I've done streams with both of them.
Yeah.
It's always fun to get together with like minds and kind of hash it up,
Yeah. And I am a relative novice when it comes to the world of horror, but I've been trying to expand my palette the last couple of years. And every year over on my channel, I do Disney Scares Month in October. And so we talk more family-friendly horror there, and we've collabed. It's been a lot of fun. So yes, so Sean, you've been on the podcast a couple times, but it's been a few years. So why don't you introduce yourself to the audience?
All right, my name is Sean Chandler. My YouTube channel is Sean Chandler Talks About, and I do lots of rankings of movie franchises. Turned into the ranking guy somehow. So if you like movie franchises, I probably ranked something that you enjoy. And if you look up Sean Chandler on YouTube, you'll either find a football player or a guy that looks like me talking about movies. It is the guy that looks like me that talks about movies.
Yeah. So Lee, well, I'd like to ask both of you actually, what do you think makes the holidays such a fertile ground for horror, and why do you think that there are so many horror films set at Christmas? Why do you think it's a good match? What do you think, Lee?
I think there's a couple things that have attributed that, and I don't think it's always been as popular as it has in say the last maybe 15 years. I know Black Christmas, this movie came out in 1974, but I remember back in the early 2000s, people started really talking about this movie. I know Quentin Tarantino, it's one of his favorite movies. He has his own personal 35 millimeter reel of it. But I just think over the past few years, people just love mixing horror with Christmas. It's almost candy-like. There's just something fun about it. You don't have to go so dark like you can in say October with horror. At least in my opinion, when I watch a Christmas horror movie, even though Black Christmas is probably my favorite, I tend to like the more lighthearted and fun and just bright and shiny horror movies. Yeah. So I might even prefer Christmas horror over October. That's a crazy thing to say, but I love it.
What do you think, Sean? Why do you think the holidays are a good setting for horror?
I think some of it is just the inherent contradiction. The Christmas, the energy that it calls to mind is family, wholesome, good tidings. It's just such a joyful, celebrative, positive time of year that everyone gets excited for. We want to decorate. We want to put all this stuff out. And so inherently, it's a little bit more interesting if you take something so joyful and happy and start spraying blood all over the place. And when you take, don't want to get ahead of myself and talk about some of my picks or anything like that, but when you take these things that represent that wholesomeness and make them violent, it's fun and it's interesting. It's combining things that don't usually go together. You don't think about them together. Yeah. But it just adds that extra little spark into it of whenever you have two things that feel so opposite and find the right plot, the right gimmick where they go together. I don't know. It's just interesting and it's fun.
Yeah, I think it does add to the subversive sort of nature to the films.
That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah. And even for me, as a horror wimp, I watch so many of these Christmas movies, these sweet Christmas movies, that I do find myself yearning for something different, for some, just a change. So I don't think I'm alone in that. And this year we have a number of the holiday horrors, which we talked about with Jennifer Chandler, with your wife. We did our All the Rest preview. We previewed some of the horror movies, and we got this Thanksgiving movie that looks absolutely terrifying. That one's a step too far for me, but but we had this one called It's a Wonderful Knife. And so we thought we would kind of go through that one. This will be a little bit spoilery. And then I'll put a timestamp in the episode that then we're going to talk about just some of our favorites after we finish talking about It's a Wonderful Knife. So if you don't want to be spoiled on It's a Wonderful Knife, then just hit the timestamp and you can hear some of our picks.
Ho, ho, ho! We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
But yeah, so It's a Wonderful Knife. Great title. Very clever. And this is directed by Tyler McIntyre, writer Michael Kennedy, and it stars Jane Widdop and Justin Long and Joel McHale. And it's after saving her town from a psychotic killer, Winnie Carruthers' life is less than wonderful. When she wishes she'd never been born, she finds herself in a nightmare parallel universe where without her, things could be much, much worse. And as I think before we dive into this film, we should talk about kind of our experience with It's a Wonderful Life, how we feel about it. And I guess we should start with you, Sean, because I think you have a unique perspective on this film.
So when it comes to It's a Wonderful Life, I mean, I have it at the absolute bottom of my Christmas movie ranking because I've never seen it. So yeah, we all have those weird blind spots, those movies that it's like, that's weird, I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And it's almost like, how have I not seen the movie? Even like my wife is like, wait, you still haven't seen it? How have you not seen that? And she was getting a little mad at me that I was going to watch It's a Wonderful Knife before It's a Wonderful Life. And I was like,
yeah,
I don't know. That kind of gives me my angle. That gives me a different a perspective where I can't see the parallels or anything like that besides knowing the basic premise.
Mm-hmm.
But I've just never seen it. I don't know why. That was a Christmas movie never watched growing up. It's not like my parents are like, freaking idiot, we're not going to watch it. It's nothing like that. There's no story. There's no explanation. It's not lack of interest. I have a copy of it right over there on my shelves. And I've actually planned to make a video on it multiple years in a row as part of my job. And I still haven't seen it. So next month, maybe that video will finally happen. Actually need to schedule me for next month and talk about it. That's you like trick me into it. But I haven't seen it.
Okay, we'll do it. That's a deal. Yeah. It is funny how I do every month on my blog. I do a blind spot, and a lot of my blind spots are because for a long time I didn't watch rated R movies, so a lot of my blind spots are kind of catching up with a lot of rated R movies that I didn't watch in the 90s or before that. But yeah, we all have those. We do all have those blind spots. But that one is just, I guess, surprising because it just airs so much, and it's such like a, whereas other blind spots are not such a part of the lexicon as
right. They're not just thrown out there constantly.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't understand how I've even missed it. How it hasn't just run into me and bumped into me.
Yeah, it was like the other day I was talking to somebody who had never seen The Lion King, and I was just kind of like,
what?
Even my mom's seen The Lion King, and she sees like no movies. But Leah, what about you? How do you feel about It's a Wonderful Life? Is it a favorite, or where does it stand for you?
Well, I mean, first off, to what Sean was saying, I think there are so many Christmas classics, and just regular Christmas movies. There's freaking probably thousands of them. And I think Christmas, the holiday season, is front loaded by like 2 or 3 movies that everybody watches, like, Christmas Story or Christmas Vacation. So it doesn't surprise me when somebody says that they haven't seen a quote unquote classic. And also, I think It's a Wonderful Life. I've talked to some people that don't like watching the movie because I guess it depends on how you look at it, but it does have a depressing side to it.
No
Whereas
question.
yeah. I mean, most of the movie it's heavy. It's emotional and it's quite depressing. And it's just not until the very end when he's running, through the town, and then you're like, oh, thank God, I feel so good now and warm and cozy. But it's not a movie that I constantly gravitate towards. And I'd even say I don't remember watching it back in, like, say, when I was a kid. I think I watched it for the first time maybe in the 90s, 2000s, something like that. And I've only watched it maybe a couple times, but I do love the movie. It's one of those movies that I acknowledge the greatness of it, but it's not one that and I think it's kind of long too, isn't it?
It is. I don't have the actual length in front of me, but it is long, especially that long introductory. Sorry, we might have some spoilers here, Sean. But it's 2 hours 10 minutes, so it's not that long, but it feels long.
See, that's surprising to me because I could have sworn the movie was like 3 hours.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's the
it's older movies and they're pacing black and white. Sometimes they feel like they go on a long time.
It's the world's most merry suicide movie.
I think that's
I've heard reports that like people actually have taken their life because of that movie. So
it's one of those, especially having not seen it, when you just hear the basic premise, like, oh, it's so uplifting. There's this guy that wants to kill himself. Like, whoa, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it is. But I think it is one of my favorites because just the humanity of it all, that and some people, and again, sorry, Sean, we might have some spoilers here, but I think the thing about it is some people say, well, it's like so over the top. The alternate version of life without George Bailey is like this, hellhole, and everything is horrible. And I don't think that with most of us, life without us would be so dismal. But if you think about the story, Clarence is trying to convince him to not kill himself. If they took him to the alternate dimension and it was like a hunky dory, everything's great, that's not going to work. That's not going to be successsul. So of course it has to be extreme. Of course
it's a gamble.
Sure. I mean, that's the whole point. And so the humanity of it all and just the value of each person is so moving. And I think that's why, it wasn't a success at the beginning. It became a success when it was free for like basic cable and other networks to air it. So then they would just air it over and over and over again. And then people started watching it and it became kind of like the original sort of a viral sensation, which is interesting.
I think it's just a very infectious plot though. Like the idea of really self-examination and what if I weren't here, how would it affect my family?
Yeah.
You know, and it forces you to kind of analyze yourself and maybe even make some changes about yourself after you really start thinking about it, get deep. And I love movies that do that.
Yeah, and I like sort of thought experiment that make you kind of think, like, if I could do it all over again, if I could try it again, if I'd made a different choice, if I'd taken a different different approach, what, like, those kind of movies are always like really interesting to me. I'm a big fan of those, and the ultimate one. And there is, so Lee, you'd asked off air if anybody's ever tried to remake It's a Wonderful Life, and there is a remake from 1977 with Marlo Thomas called It Happened One Christmas. So maybe, hey, Sean, maybe in your you could do a
two depressing movies.
Wonderful Library.
Orson Welles. I've actually never seen it. Or not good, but that's the lone attempt to try to remake it. But now we have this. It's a Wonderful Knife, and you two are the horror pros. I'm the novice. And so overall, what did you think about it? Did you think it was a fun movie, or did you think it, missed? How did you feel, Sean, about it overall?
So this genre over the last few years of, let's take a movie trope and do it as a slasher. Let's take a famous movie and do it as a slasher. Happy Death Day, Freaky, Totally Killer. I've enjoyed all the previous movies of this formula. This movie was written by the guy that wrote Freaky, or at least the first draft of Freaky. So I went into it really excited, and I really didn't like it at all.
Oh, okay.
It didn't. It kind of missed on almost every level for me.
Okay.
Where I didn't even like it. It says on the Wikipedia page it's supposed to be a horror comedy. I didn't even feel like it was trying to be funny. It played it real serious.
Yeah.
Outside of a couple characters that are kind of, Justin Long's kind of cartoony, but other than that, it plays it pretty straight. And just the character motivations, just the characters in general, I just didn't really care about any of them. And they'd have like an energy or a spark to them. So, and even the motivation for doing the It's a Wonderful Life. Oh, should I even be alive? Seemed like really so forced, and like, what? It just rang hollow. And so if you call it It's a Wonderful Knife, and then you make a movie that's actually like really serious, I really don't even have too many positives to say about it. Unfortunately, I really wanted to like it. I was like actually excited for it, and then I was like, I didn't hit right for me.
What did you think, Lee? Overall, how did you feel?
Well, my wife agrees with you, Sean. My wife hated this movie. We watched it together. she's like, that is complete utter trash. I couldn't stand it. I put it somewhere along the middle. I like how ambitious they were, because to try to copy It's a Wonderful Life, a slasher plot is usually pretty straightforward. Killer going after multiple victims every 15 minutes, and we get a final act of them chasing. This one's not that at all. And you really have to get invested in, it asks a lot of the viewer to get invested in these characters. Mostly it's Winnie and Bernie. Yeah, those are our two main. But I think one of the big problems is it does have a lot of characters that it's trying to juggle around. And you can get kind of lost in the weeds. And if you don't care about these characters, then good luck. It's going to be rough. But I think the anchor for me was the main character, Winnie, and then her friend, Bernie. I was kind of latched onto them too. I didn't really care for Justin Long, which was shocking to me because I usually love Justin Long. But I felt like he was really trying to channel Walton Goggins and what he was doing with the Righteous Gemstones. Which I can't recommend that show enough if you haven't seen it. But there's a character that he does, Uncle Baby Billy. And it's very similar to what Justin Long's trying to do, but Walton Goggins just freaking sends it home. He nails it. It's infectious. So
I haven't seen that show, so I have no idea what you're talking about in the one sense. At the same time, when you say Walton Goggins doing that kind of character, I can like my brain, I immediately hear that go, yeah, right. Certain actors can just channel a certain vibe. And like the characters, obviously, the mayor's supposed to obviously be very artificial in what he's doing, but being sincere and creepy in that, the specific, like you say, as soon as you said Walton Goggins, I was like, yeah, that would have
exactly
been right.
Walton Goggins,
Justin Long,
he would have,
it just didn't fit.
Yeah, I think if he, like what he does in the Righteous Gemstones is I think what Justin Long is trying to achieve, and because there's something about him that you like, you feel like there's something sincere. There's just layers to his character, whereas Justin Long feels extremely one-dimensional, and he's pretty much supposed to be like the Mr. Potter that's in the original It's a Wonderful Life. Mr. Potter, yeah, he's a complete jerk, but there's definitely some layers to that character. So, and also is talking about like the heart that this movie's trying to capture, because It's a Wonderful Life is just a very emotional movie. I didn't really feel that with this. I had fun with it from a slasher point of view, especially with the kills. It has some fun kills, but overall, it doesn't send home that emotional punch like the original does. So I'm kind of down the middle.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's Esther Hatch and her new book, One Small Secret. Step into the whimsical world of One Small Secret, where a dash of laughter and a sprinkle of Christmas cheer makes for the perfect festive read. Reuben Palmer is not only a Hotel Empire icon, he is also on every woman's Christmas list. But Cadence knows better than to fall for him. However, when a very adorable package ends up on her bed, Reuben is suddenly on her doorstep, wanting to be part of her life. Inspired by the classic movies Bachelor Mother and Bundle of Joy, this workplace rom-com is the perfect book to curl up and read with a cup of hot cocoa and your favorite blanket. So you can pick up One Small Secret anywhere you purchase novels or using our affiliate link down below. Well, so it's interesting for me with this movie coming from a Hallmark perspective, because I think it actually does a better job of sort of satirizing and skewering Hallmark movies than it does actually It's a Wonderful Life. There's almost nothing in here aside from the initial setup of her wishing she wasn't born. There's almost nothing in here that's a sort of a satire or a wink wink at It's a Wonderful Life. They don't even like name the town a similar name with like Pottersville or whatever it's called. I forget like they don't even have kind of character names the same that you would expect. But like, I really felt like with Justin Long's character, because there's nothing a Hallmark movie loves more than a mayor, and then like a
mayor and a Hallmark movie.
Yeah. And then like, there's always sort of the bad man of business, as we like to call on the podcast. And he is just the ultimate bad man of business in this movie. He wants to build the condos. He wants to turn the town into megacore like this, and take the heart away. And I'm always like, why can't they build these condos on other land? Why does it always have to be in the community center or the beloved, church store, whatever it might be? And so he totally was that kind of like, again, your sort of bad man of business who that's the only thing he cares about is business. He doesn't care about anybody, any people or any. And so that's what I felt like. And even we kind of joke in Hallmark movies that if they want to give the heroine a creative profession, it is 99.9% of the time a photographer. And I'm not sure why exactly. It may just easier to have photographs than it is paintings or sculptures or, whatever. But they've all Candace Cameron Bure, all your, sort of your leading ladies have all played photographers and it's never like I'm a wedding photographer or I like take school photos. No, it's always like I'm an op-ed. I take like op-ed photographer. And so I thought it was kind of funny that she's a photographer. Like that's her big dream. She wants to go to, what is it, like Cornell or something? She wants to be a photographer. Of course she does. And so I felt like it was sort of more entertaining maybe for me than the typical viewer. And I was just surprised at just how little they took advantage of It's a Wonderful Life. Because at first I was thinking you're gonna get it all spoiled and it's gonna be or you're not gonna understand with Sean.
Yeah.
Having not seen it. But then I watched it and I was like, no, there's almost nothing.
Well, the
in here
interesting
from
thing
It's a
about
Wonderful
it
Life.
was that they did a little twist because Winnie, you are kind of assuming that she is the Clarence character, in the original movie. The
Mhm.
guy who pretty much told George, this is what we're going to do. We're going to act like, this is what the world would be like if you didn't exist. But then by the end of the movie, spoiler, but by the end of the movie, there's
You
like
mean
a twist.
Bernie?
And Bernie was
Yeah.
actually the Clarence character.
Yeah, yeah.
And they
Oh,
even
yeah,
literally
yeah.
say it out loud. There's a
Mhm.
couple of winks and nods where she literally says, "It's a Wonderful Life." She says, "You're my Clarence from It's a Wonderful Life." And
Mhm.
also Potter rhymes with water. So,
Yeah.
Waters. Yeah. So,
And I think it's kind of an interesting idea of like there's all these murders and everything's like horrible, and you expect when you're making this wish, you expect it to be like so much better
mhm.
on the other side, right? That they're not going to be murderers, that it's not going to be, but it's even worse. And the other side, basically her dad becomes one of the murderers. I mean, in this other side. And
That was weird.
that's shocking. And it's kind of I guess it shows like what grief and evil and other things can do to a person. I guess maybe they were trying to do that. But yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I thought they had, again, no expert here, but I thought they had some pretty gnarly kills. I mean,
Yeah.
When that couple is making out and he gets speared by a candy cane, that was pretty
Well, that's the
intense.
go-to in any Christmas slasher.
Yeah.
You got to have the candy cane
Yeah.
through the mouth and the back of the head.
Yeah.
It comes with it's like the what do you call it? The novice playbook or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah. That was probably the most, like, if you can say a kill is fun, I would say that one
Mhm.
was the most. Would you agree, Lee? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I like the kills throughout the movie. I was quite surprised, actually, given that it felt
Mhm.
like this kind of lighthearted. It's taking place, for It's a
Mhm.
Wonderful Life. But then it pretty quickly you get
Yeah.
that first kill, and there's like a big blood splatter, and I'm like, oh, this movie's definitely not holding back.
Mhm.
But I just didn't think the movie really hammered home what exactly it wanted to be. Like, it didn't feel like, oh, it's just a straight on, four to the floor slasher movie. No, let's do the
Yeah.
slasher and then let's stop and let's do our little story here. And then let's
Mhm.
go back to Slasherville. And by the way, we got two different killers. And in the trailer, let's go ahead and give away who one of the killers is, which that just freaking blew
Yeah,
my
that was
mind.
strange. I
That
don't
was
understand
insane.
why they
I
did
literally
that.
had to tell my subscribers, do not watch the trailer for this, okay? Because they
Yeah.
literally give away who the killer is.
Yeah,
Insane.
I don't. But I think what you just said, I think that was a big part of my problem with it, is that it never seemed like it knew what it wanted to be. It never locked in on, here's the thing we're going to do really well. And so it's not like a film you can leave it and think, well, it was like had the best kills. Like there's a couple that are fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But it's not like that's not the best at that. It's not like this angel is like this new super, like this is the new slasher icon. It's not going to be that.
Mhm.
Nope.
And then it's not that funny. And then on the emotional level, it doesn't. I think there's enough of a disconnect in the motivation for everything that the emotional journey there isn't clear, and it's trying to do a few too many things where she's suicidal, her friend's suicidal, her dad is depressed. And so it's kind of tackling all of these different people that are depressed, but not in a way that like feels like you get you don't walk away with an insight, or it's just there's all these different things kind of going on. We go, that almost was there, or maybe that could have been good, but the specific way it's blended together, none of it kind of stood out. And I guess the other thing on here that perhaps even ties into what you just said of it looks very cheap. It just has that, even maybe it plays better even if you say it as a a send up of Hallmark movies where you go, like my thought was this feels like an episode of the CW.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it just has that look to it. And I don't know, just that's just a lot of those things that just kind of bugged me. And my wife also watched it with me, and she was like, I don't think I like this one almost from the beginning. It's like, it just doesn't. Look, what are we doing here? What is it? What am I supposed to care about? What's supposed?
Well, it's going for this like really lighthearted feel, and usually when I'm watching something that's lighthearted, I want to laugh and I want to have some comedy there. And I felt like they were trying to set up some laughs, but it never really quite. And I think it's just because they have so much going on. I almost wonder if the writers were watching Back to the Future Part 2. Because it's like an alternate reality. And that's what they're presenting here. But it was so much better in Back to the Future Part 2. Whereas this one, we're doing that, but by the way, we got to do a slasher thing here. And it'll never be remembered for having a great slasher kill, just because of everything that gets in the way of it. You know?
Yeah. I do think that Justin Long was really smart casting because he is just such a likable guy. And so for to have him in these horror movies is so smart, because you're immediately kind of off guard. It's just playing against type. And Barbarian obviously was far superior to this, but I just thought that was such brilliant casting in Barbarian to have him playing this Me Too guy, because it's the last person that you expect. He was just fantastic in Barbarian. He's just so
and his arc, journey, and the big conclusion work. Because he's a guy, you keep rooting for him. You keep wanting to be on his side so they can kind of keep sucking you back in until you're like, no, he actually is the worst.
Yeah. It's like he jumps off a cliff and he grabs you by the arm as he's doing it.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Yeah.
But as soon as it started and he was on screen, my wife goes, "Oh no, what did they do to Justin Long?" It's like, that's the character. That's the character.
He was supposed to disappointment, and I hate to be like, we all don't like to not like a movie, but to be disappointed by a movie is even worse, I think. And I love Justin Long so much in mostly everything he does.
Yeah.
And he was the one thing, like our only hope about I was really looking forward to a zany, whacked out performance, but I just felt like he didn't send it home as far as what he was trying to do with the character.
It was all right for me. I like the kind of play up of this, like I said, of the mayor, of the bad man of business. That's actually the murderer. Because a lot of times, also in these Hallmark movies, a lot of times the bad man of business, like they've done nothing wrong. They've just been like working a lot. So like, okay, they're terrible people, and they just aren't our hometown hunk that our love interest is supposed to be with, right? And so because that's the thing with archetypal movies, is that the archetypes really help, because you don't waste your time in setting up character arcs that are unnecessary. You immediately know the minute you see this character, this is exactly what they're there for, and this is what they're doing, and boom, you can move on with the story. And especially when you only have 82 minutes, like most of these Hallmark movies have, you need those things to help you tell the story faster. And so I have no problem with the bad man of business, with the other, archetypes. They make the stories work. And then it's up to the banter and the chemistry and the story to take those and run with it. Right. And so I thought that it was, oh, I see what they're doing there. That's kind of fun. And I smiled, and the kills were kind of like, oh, for me enough that I enjoyed it. I had a fun time with it, but I do think it was a bit of a missed opportunity in there's just nothing from It's a Wonderful Life. Like they could have used so much more. Like I wanted to have my way at the script and be like, oh, there's so much like juicy stuff that they could have put in from It's a Wonderful Life that I think would have been really fun. My other like favorite, I guess, action, my favorite bloody scene of the movie was when Bernie has that whole like murder board. She's like following everything, and then he comes in with that, and he's like, like that. I thought was a fun.
It's always fun to have an axe in a slasher.
Yeah, an axe. Like,
sure.
oh. So yeah, I did overall have fun with it, but it's always tricky because the things that sometimes I haven't gotten tired of, other people will see, like Boogeyman this year, that a lot of people were like, oh, it was so boring. I've seen this movie a million times. And I'm like, I haven't. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it actually. It surprised me.
And so that's just it's just interesting how like we all kind of come from our perspectives, and some of us have seen thousands of horror movies, and some of us have seen 20, and how that.
Well,
that
one thing I do know from the internet is that no matter what the movie, there's going to be somebody that thinks it's the greatest movie ever, and then there's going to be somebody that thinks it's the worst movie ever.
It's true.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
It's true. That's very, very true.
And these people also tend to be inclined to not understand different perspectives.
No,
they say they can't understand. Wait a minute. You don't think this is the worst ever? Wait, you don't think that this is the best movie ever? How dare you?
Well, yeah, and like 80% of movies are like, that was fine. I enjoyed that. Yeah. I guess it was okay. And because of Rotten Tomatoes, to be like, you loved it, and I'm like, not really, but you gave it fresh, so you loved it.
Yeah, most movies, it's very reasonable that you, wherever you fall, you can be like, yeah, that's fair enough. You enjoyed it or you didn't. Okay, I got you. That's not interesting on the internet. No, we got to go crazy extremes.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be heard. You got to be loud. Got to be loud as possible.
Well, if you're listening, you have to let us know what you think of It's a Wonderful Knife. It's going to be, I think, in theaters and then on Shudder. So check it out. And so before we go, we thought it would be fun just to talk a little bit, each give a couple recommendations for your favorite holiday horror. And so, Sean, why don't you give a couple of your picks?
All righty. So I'll pick up with the new one from last year, Violent Night. I was very excited when I heard that David Harbour was going to be playing Santa Claus and killing people. It's probably more on the side of action movie, but it's kind of gory action movie. It's violent Santa Claus, and I got what I wanted out of that movie, of just like violent fun, Die Hard with a violent Santa Claus that I want to see, and a couple other fun actors showing up in there too. And then I'll go with one from 5 years back. I was actually at the world premiere of this movie, Anna and the Apocalypse. It is a high school Christmas zombie apocalypse musical. And it's legitimately all of those kind of like mashed together, that you have these catchy, bubbly songs and dance numbers, but someone's like walking and zombies start walking around them, and they're doing these dances with the zombies, not realizing the apocalypse has started. And it works surprisingly well, and you care about the characters. The songs are good, and it's a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, I'd agree. I really loved that one too. I mean, that's just like it catches everything that I love. Musicals. It's musicals and the zombie movie, and it has has a little bit of some romance in there. It's just, I just was super entertained by it. I really enjoyed it. So I agree with that one. I would also say Gremlins. That's one we talked about before,
Yep.
Sean, as well as Anna. And Gremlins is a great time, and Gremlins 2 is a great time as well. And the character design, it does get pretty gruesome at points, especially with the whole chimney thing and Phoebe Kate's dad. But I really enjoy it. I think they're both fun. And then I would say Krampus. I really like it. I think it creates atmosphere well. I think it creates tension well. So it seems like that's maybe not that popular of an opinion, but I really enjoyed it and thought that it was a good thriller / horror. But what about you, Lee? What's some that you like?
Now, if you're looking for a Christmas horror, I say last year I really dug Christmas Bloody Christmas. It just feels like a Terminator.
I had that on
Christmas
my
movie.
list too.
Yeah, that one's really fun, and it gets really intense too. I dug that one. Now, as far as like, just so if I can recommend like a non-horror that nobody really ever talks about, The Ref with Dennis Leary, and it's about this. I think he's a robber in the movie, and he's robbing this house of this couple that are getting a divorce, and he gets so like annoyed and bent out of shape, and the scenario ends up not being what he's wanting it to be, and he ends up like hating the couple, and so it's a great like back and forth dialogue driven movie that happens to be on Christmas, and it's really fun. Also, one more I'll give you because I like giving deep cuts. Don't laugh at me, okay? Silent Night, Deadly Night 5.
Oh, wow.
The toy maker. All right, I know you're laughing, but trust me, I'm telling you, when you watch this movie, it is the most whacked out, craziest. One thing I like about Silent Night, Deadly Night is every movie, except for the first two, is a completely different plot, And the fifth one has nothing to do with the rest of it. And Mickey Rooney is in it, which is funny because Mickey Rooney said, come hell or high water, he would never be in a Silent Night, Deadly Night movie, because of all the hoopla around the first movie. Like he was outspoken about it, and he ends up being in a Silent Night, Deadly Night movie for part 5. So yeah. Those are my recommendations.
Oh, that's good. Well, 2 others that are sort of in the TV movie landscape that people might enjoy. One is called Toys of Terror. And both of these actually that I'm going to mention both aired on the Sci-Fi Channel. And I thought they were both really fun. Like the special effects and stuff is very cheesy, but that's kind of part of the charm of it in the end. But it's about, there's this like, this is going back ways to remember everything, but there's this like cursed haunted house that had this orphanage and then there's these toys and I thought it was very effective and good atmosphere. It was, so that's one to check out. And then also there's one really fun one called Letters to Satan Claus.
Oh my God.
This one
that can't be good.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not like good, but it's like, it's really, really trying to spoof on Hallmark movies and do like a horror version of a Hallmark movie. That's why I definitely wanted to bring it up. Letters to Satan Claus. It's this girl. She's like hates Christmas. She's sick of Christmas. They're writing these Christmas letters to Santa, whatever, the like community thing. And instead of writing a letter to Santa Claus, she writes a letter to Satan Claus, and Satan Claus then comes and like as a demon, it comes and terrorizes the
Why
town.
hasn't Disney adapted that yet?
I don't know, but it was actually pretty fun. I enjoyed it. So if people are looking for sort of the TV movie variety, then those are 2 recommendations that you should check out.
I like TV movies. There's like a certain vibe to it. Yeah.
Well, I do too, because they're just like this little package. Sometimes you just want a little bit of entertainment and a little story, and then you can move on with your life. And that's what TV movies do for me. And so I enjoy them. So let us know what you think about It's a Wonderful Little Knife, and what your recommendations for holiday horror would be. If you're listening, we'd love to hear your thoughts. And so, Lee, how can people find you, your content, your channel, and do you have anything coming up this season you want to promote?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube, Drumdums. Just search Drumdums and I'll pop up. As far as I always like to cover something Christmas related during the holidays. I love the holidays, and that's from Halloween all the way through Christmas. It's kind of my prime time on my channel. And I love covering, both holidays. And so for Christmas, I'm really looking forward. I think I'm going to actually go back and do a full retrospective of the first Silent Night, Deadly Night, because I reviewed the movie like when I first started my channel, and I think it's like a 4-minute review.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't mind going back and revisiting it and getting a little bit deeper into it. And then outside of that, whatever new is coming up. I'm going to see Thanksgiving on Tuesday for a press screening. I'm sure you guys are too, probably. But,
I'm not
actually crazy.
You're like, no,
I'm too scared.
So 2 movies. I was invited to 3 press screenings on Tuesday. One of them's middle of the day Napoleon, and then at nighttime, same PR company.
Yep.
Covering 2 different movies scheduled their press screenings against each other. Same PR company scheduled Hunger Games and Thanksgiving same night.
Same here. Same here. They're back to back. It's weird how they do that sometimes.
Yeah, that's funny. So Sean, where can people find you, your content? You got anything you want to plug?
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube. If you look up Sean Chandler, you should be able to find plenty of videos of me putting things in order. Coming up in the near future, got a Hunger Games. We just talked about that. Probably got a Marvel ranking. Just posted a David Fincher ranking. So, like I said, I cover all kinds of different things. Actually, I'm gonna have my first Bollywood ranking, I think, in a couple of days for the Spy universe. So we're going all over the place this week.
Very good. Very good. Well, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure that you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews 5 stars. That really helps us a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate that. We also have our Patreon group, which is a lot of fun, and the merch store where we have new merch designs for the holidays. And we kind of took a Barbie aesthetic, Barbie inspiration for this year's merch. So check it out. I think it's fun. And thanks to both of you. This was so much fun to get to do something different and talk about holiday horror. Really appreciate it. And wish you both a very, very Merry Christmas. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.